Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by. Warm welcome to those who are live, and um, thank you to everyone who's spending some time watching the recording of this live broadcast. Special welcome to a day in the life of Allison Willett. I think it's your first time at least saying hello on this channel. Thanks for saying hi. And hello, Jason. Thanks for your enthusiasm. So, I was having a conversation today. I have a friend named Dan, and we're getting to know each other. We hang out and do stuff, and I mentioned the G word today. I mentioned God and how, the more I focus on God and sort of integrate God into my life, just the happier I am and the better my life goes. And he kind of looked at me a little puzzled. And he said, and by God, do you mean in a Judeo-Christian sense? And I said, no, more in a universal sense. Kind of, and he and I have talked a little bit about Star Wars and the idea of the Force, kind of like the Force, but with a benign personality, kind of like an all-pervasive energy field that cares and love, and if I was just kind of spontaneous, if I'd really thought a little more, I might have said, like infinite love and infinite goodness that's all around us and in us. And he said, yeah, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I was raised in this tradition where God was like really spiteful and vengeful. And I looked at him, I said, yeah, me too. And it's only in the last couple of years that I felt comfortable even using the word God. Because until I found the teachings of Bruno Groening, and this channel is dedicated to Bruno Groening's teachings. And for anyone who's new, I'll share a little bit about Bruno. I'm assuming everyone here is familiar with him. Until I found Bruno Groening's teachings, that was kind of my feeling about God, like this very scary, wrathful thing that was almost dangerous. But through the teachings of Bruno Groening and through, more importantly, putting into practice what Bruno taught, I started to have a different, not just belief about God, but experience of God. And I'm really excited to share a little bit about this today. Welcome, Janet. Okay, great. Oh, okay, cool. Janet, welcome. So Janet, you've seen the documentary about Bruno Groening. Hi, Forever Loving Everything. Okay, exciting. So then welcome to Janet. She's seen the documentary about Bruno Groening, and so I'm really excited to share some more about Bruno. So before I found Bruno Groening, I described myself as a devout agnostic. I was very committed to the position. I'd given up on the idea of God because of how I was raised. And I'm like, maybe there's a God, maybe there isn't. I don't know, and we can't know. But after practicing what Bruno taught, God is no longer a matter of belief for me. It's an absolute, unquestionable fact that there is a higher power. I was engaged in an online dialogue with someone who was an atheist. We weren't arguing, we're just kind of dialoguing a little bit. And at a certain point, he said, I don't want to convince you, I'm not trying to convince you of my beliefs. And I was tempted to respond like, good luck convincing me, because it's not a belief for me. It's a fact. I didn't say this, but what I was thinking is, it's a fact for me. There is a higher power. I don't need to believe it. My own body convinced me of it. And, Bruno Groening said, if you observe your body will convince you of the truth. Meaning, he taught people a practice of observing their body with the intention to receive a divine healing energy. And if you do it long enough, You'll experience a miraculous healing, and you won't need to, quote, believe in God. You'll have proof. And that's how it was for me. I followed the very simple directions of that Bruno taught, and I experienced inexplicable healings. My body convinced me of the fact that there is a force, an energy, a power, a consciousness that is uh, beyond what we think of as the laws of science. That there's something even more fundamental than physics and chemistry and biology. So the the primary thing that Bruno Groening taught was how, well, I can't say primary, one of the main things that Bruno Groening taught is how to receive this divine energy that can heal, this really sacred life energy that can actually heal the body. So it's very simple to do this. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards. Back in a relaxed, upright position, not stiff, but not slouched over either. And if possible, not leaning against your chair. And when I first found this practice, I needed to lean against my chair. I couldn't sit upright without back support. So just do the best you can. And now, please close your eyes. And come into the present moment. Let go of what's happened today. Let go of our plans for the future. Just come into the present moment. Now, please mentally separate yourself, distance yourself, or give away your problems, worries, and illnesses to your understanding of a higher power or to a spiritual helper that you trust, such as Bruno Groening. Literally handing them over or really distancing yourself from them. Take a few seconds of silence and do that now. And any life situations that you feel tension or stress over, put them into the hands of God or the hands of a spiritual helper you trust. And now, having emptied ourselves out, now it's time to fill ourselves up with the good, divine, healing energy. In whatever way feels comfortable to you, ask. Ask your understanding of higher power or ask a spiritual helper such as Bruno, whom you trust. Please, I want to receive the divine energy and observe your body, having the will and intention to take this energy in. So we're going to sit in silence for a couple minutes and observe our bodies, having the intention to take this energy in. Noticing what you feel, having the intention to receive. Now, if your mind is going all over the place and you can't focus, some suggestions I'd like to offer. You can play a piece of music. You can observe your breath. You can repeat a short prayer or mantra. But that's just to really focus the mind. The practice is really to Notice what you're feeling, having the intention to absorb divine healing energy. Letting thoughts just pass by. If you become aware of a negative thought or thinking about an illness or burden, with some firmness, giving that negative thought away. So I'm going to speak a little, and if you like, or I invite you to continue doing this practice. You can even sit with your eyes closed. You'll see some of the time I'll be here with my eyes closed. Now, for anyone who's new, some people feel something immediately when they do this, and some people it takes a little time. When I first did this practice, I didn't feel anything for maybe the first 3, 4, 5, maybe it took 8 or 9 times of doing it. And then I began to feel something. I felt a tingling. But maybe even before the tingling, I felt a peace, a spaciousness. I had a friend who, named Teo, the first time he did this, he felt something. He wasn't sure what, but he felt something good. And then for months after that, he didn't feel anything. But he was convinced that these teachings were true and that they could help him. So he kept doing it. He did it on his own. He went to meetings and then he had a healing. And like 18 years of chronic neck tension and pain. And it just vanished. 18 years. And then after that, he could feel this energy so strongly. So, like I said, for myself, initially, I didn't feel anything. I was kind of disappointed. So, but then I went to a meeting, and the first meeting I was able to stay for about 40 minutes. I didn't really feel anything, but I was able to sit for 40 minutes. It was uncomfortable, but that in and of itself was a miracle. I had so many problems. Normally, I could only sit for like 20 minutes at the most. And then 3 weeks later, I went to another meeting and I sat for 2 hours. There were times where it was uncomfortable, but I could do it. 3 weeks later, I went to another meeting and I sat for 2 hours with almost no discomfort. I think at that point, I was starting to feel this life force that Bruno Groening spoke about. He called it, the German word is Heilstrom, except he created that German word. He combined two words, Heil and Strom. Strom means flow or current or river or electric current. Kind of like something that oscillates and moves along. Heil is a very interesting word. It means divine, healing, health, salvation, wholeness, untouched, unscathed, uninjured. It has like 15 or 16 different meanings. And so I think in using the word Heilstrom, Bruno wasn't so much telling us what the energy was, but what it does. It heals, it saves. And we'll talk a little bit maybe later on what he meant by save. It helps us to feel whole and intact, or restores us to a state of wholeness or being intact. So this sacred divine energy, it can be hard sometimes for the mind to fathom, but what it does is it heals and also helps us to feel what Bruno called the divine heavenly peace. A peace that really isn't dependent on conditions, right? Like in our day-to-day life, if like let's say I have it's like I feel peaceful as long as there's nothing, only under certain circumstances, right? But Bruno said that he was able to maintain a divine heavenly peace no matter what was going on. And he did not have an easy life. So this energy heals, but it also helps us to find a sense of peace that's not dependent on conditions. So it's very beautiful. It helps relieve us of our problems and also helps us to feel at peace while the problems are healing. Hmm. So Bruno Groening presented a very different view of, I mentioned that one of the meanings of Heil is salvation. So Bruno presented a slightly different view of salvation and of health than the way most people think of such things. So according to Bruno Groening and this teaching, you can find it in many, many other cultures and many other traditions. You and I, all of us, we're not this thing. We're actually not a body. We're a soul that's been given a body. And according to Bruno Groening, that soul is and remains divine. That there's nothing that can taint or make less than holy that soul. However, one of the capacities of the soul is to receive energy, and also to receive thoughts. And according to Bruno Groening, when the soul incorrectly chooses what to receive, then in essence it becomes covered over. He likened it to a stick, the soul being a stick. And the stick can get muddy, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a stick. And then he likened the body to a bucket of water. And the stick that can get covered with mud or metaphorically with dis-ease or disharmony or negativity gets put into this bucket of water, into a body, then the body becomes infected. The body becomes tainted. And once the body is tainted, Bruno Groening said that in essence, that dis-ease, that disharmony literally leads us to act and behave in certain ways. And so that's the process of unwellness. I'm working backwards here. The process of dis-ease and the opposite of salvation, bondage. Then salvation and healing is nothing more than the release of that negative energy from the body and release of that energy from, you could say, clinging to or surrounding the soul. Health is natural, according to Bruno Groening. And healing is nothing more than the removal of negativity, of negative energy, which, as I said, doesn't taint the soul, but surrounds the soul and certainly taints the body. So this energy can be likened to a kind of medicine, a divine medicine. In fact, one of the meanings of heil, from Heilstrom, is medicinal. But this medicine works in a slightly different way. Normally, if you take a particular medicine or herb, it has a specific impact and it targets a specific aspect of the body. This medicine, this divine medicine, it really only targets one thing, this negativity, this negative energy, and removes that. Now, according to Bruno Groening, this negative force or negative energy is the root cause of all illnesses. So in essence, illness is nothing but a symptom of having taken on this negative energy. So first, you take in the negativity, and then an illness happens, according to the teachings of Bruno Groening. And so the healing isn't trying to treat the illness. In this way of healing, it's actually to remove the negativity that's actually causing the illness. Now, Bruno Groening always advised people to go to a doctor if you feel so called to. And he wanted to work in harmony with doctors. It's just a different approach to health and wellness. So, Gerald said, God, evening together. Yes. So we've talked a little bit about this energy and a little bit about the process of dis-ease and bondage and the process of healing and salvation from a spiritual point of view. And I started off this talk saying God, and Daryl just said God. So what on earth or what on heaven is God? Well, interestingly enough, Bruno Groening talked about God all the time, but he didn't say anything complicated or too esoteric. He said things such as, God is goodness, order, harmony. God is life. We've all heard the saying, God is love, but Bruno turned it around. He said, love is God. And a beautiful word he used to describe God, a German word, Leben, which on the surface means life, but on a deeper level, Leben also means existence, being, aliveness. He said God is everywhere and in everything. He said God never punishes. He pointed out that God allows us to experience the consequence of our actions so that we can learn from it, but never punishes. That was very powerful for me. I had to hear it about 15 times to really take it in, to really take in the idea that my divine parent, my true parent, and I, honor my mother and father, but that which made my soul and made my mother and father, my earthly mother and father, was perfect love and was never vengeful, never spiteful, but did allow me to experience trials and tribulations when I had acted wrongly. In essence, to experience the results of what I'd done. It's a radically different view of God. Just that one statement, and Bruno said it often. He said, God never punishes. Because most people, because of how we've been taught by humans who are taught by humans who are taught by humans, taught incorrectly, when you mention the word God, the first thing most people think of is a vengeful or punishing. Well, I can't say most, many, a vengeful, punishing being to fear. That's certainly how I thought of God. And according to the teachings of Bruno Groening, it's the exact opposite. And many things that we've been taught are the exact opposite. And that's why Bruno Groening called humanity to what he called the great turnaround or great reversal. A reversal is to go in the exact opposite direction that you were going. What's the exact opposite of a vengeful, wrathful God? A all good, all loving God. Even beyond that, that not just an all loving God, but that goodness is God and love is God and life, existence, aliveness is God. And so all Bruno taught was how to live in alignment with this goodness. I'm not sure if Bruno himself called it this or if other people described it this way. I think Bruno used these words, the rules of the game of life. Now, I've played different sports over the years, and every sport, every game, not just sports, they have rules, things that you need to do. And in sports, it's maybe a stronger analogy in sports, because if you break the rules in sports, there's negative consequences. And so what Bruno Groening taught was nothing more and nothing less than how to have a wonderful life. Now, in human terms, we think of having a wonderful life means have a big house, have lots of money, be famous, or there's all these. But what I mean by a wonderful life, and what Bruno Groening meant by a wonderful life, is a life of health, a life of peace and happiness, a life of being in service. And service can sound a little heavy, but contributing, a life of living in harmony with other people and with nature. And Bruno Groening said that it is possible to, that the spiritual path doesn't preclude material wealth. No, he never said that. In fact, let's see if I have it right here. Bruno said, as far as God is concerned, man can become rich here on earth, but it should not be his only aim. So it doesn't preclude those things, but in the spirit of It's written that Jesus wrote, seek first the kingdom of God, seek first spiritual things. And it's written, then he said, and all these things shall be added unto you. And I believe that's the exact spirit that Bruno Groening taught in, is put your spiritual life first. Not because you should do it, or because it's um, you know, not to be a good little boy or girl, but put it first because that's what works. Welcome, Lapiche. Hi, Germana. So, and I meant to say this at the beginning. Please don't believe anything I say, unless I'm sharing about myself. If I'm share something I experienced, I'm telling the truth. Please believe me. But in terms of these spiritual things, please don't just accept them as true. Find out for yourself. I can't promise, but I can almost promise that if you do this practice of taking in energy and you apply Bruno's teachings, your body will convince yourself of the truth. You won't need to believe this strange guy on YouTube. You'll have proof. So let's spend a little more time taking in this good energy, observing the body with the intention to receive. So what we're doing is we're taking in the energy of harmony. Bruno used the word Ordnung, the German word, which on the surface means order, but I believe harmony in the sense of a natural order as opposed to a human order. In fact, that's what he would say. He'd say, Gottlichen Ordnung, divine order or divine harmony. And he said the good needs to displace the bad in the body. So in essence, we're getting a cleaning. We're getting a divine cleaning, a divine shower. So one of the things that Bruno Groening spoke of was how he was able to help people. He spoke of himself as a helper and as a friend. And one of the ways he said he was able to help people was that, well, first let me backtrack a moment. He said that humanity as a whole had moved so far away from God and so far away from nature that most human beings were not able to receive the divine current directly. What's natural, he said, and he implied that, a while back in history, everyone was in communion and connection with the divine, and people were able to directly take in this divine energy. He said, now, however, most people aren't able to directly receive it. They need a mediator, or they need someone to, in essence, transform the energy, or it seemed like to tone it down a little bit. And he said that he was such a person who could do that. He spoke of himself as a transforming station. And he made no claim to be the only one. In fact, he said there's always at least one such being on the planet doing this work, the work that he did while he was here. He likened himself to a nurse. Now, what does a nurse do? They follow the doctor's directions, and obviously the nurses do so much. They give care, and they pass along the medicine that the doctor has prescribed. He also likened himself to an operator. Now, we don't really have operators so much in the 21st century. Back in the 50s, when Bruno was teaching, in order to make a long distance call, you literally couldn't do it. Like today, any one of us can pick up a phone and dial anywhere around the world. But back in the 50s, you couldn't. You had to dial the operator first, and then the operator would connect you. And he likened it to that was his role, to help people to find the divine connection. Ultimately, it was his goal to get people to the point where they didn't need his help or the assistance of a helper such as himself. But until that point in time, he said he was very available. Now, I didn't know what any of that meant, because for anyone who's new, Bruno Groening's currently not in his body that we know of. He left in 1959. So how could someone who's not in a physical body help us? Well, he said that he would still be with us in spirit. And when I first heard that, I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard of, but I heard all these stories of people asking Bruno Groening for help and receiving it, sometimes immediately. And I've experienced it myself. Let's think of the last time. Well, I've shared this story many times. I lost a necklace in the park, and a very precious necklace to me. And so me and a friend tuned in, and we asked Bruno for help. I went over to find it, and our plan was just to walk every inch of the park. But at a certain point, it was almost like I was possessed. My body we were walking in rows. So we went up one row, down another row, up one row, down another row. And then I started a new row, and then all of a sudden it was like something took my body, turned it to the left, and I heard a a thought or a voice say 1, and I took 1 step. 2, it was like something was moving me. Took another step. 3, took another step. And then my head looked, I didn't look down, but my head like tilted down and I was staring right at my necklace. There's no way I could see it. It was a teeny tiny pendant on a teeny tiny necklace. But this energy, this divine energy, had literally seized me and moved me. And isn't that what inspiration is? Inspiration literally means being filled with the Spirit. From a spiritual perspective, the Spirit of God. Many times I've not been able to find something, asked Bruno Groening for help, and there it was. Much less physical healings. I remember one time I was waking up in the middle of every night needing to urinate. And I shared that with the doctor, and he did an exam, and he said, oh, it's benign enlarged prostate, meaning I didn't have prostate cancer, but my prostate was a little big, and it was making me wake up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom. And in that moment, I just thought, well, Bruno has shrunk brain cancer tumors in the brain. If he can shrink that, it's kind of joking, but it worked. It's like he can shrink my prostate back to the normal size. And that's it. I just had that thought. I gave away the burden. I trusted in Bruno to help. I didn't even do any special tuning in for it. And that was the last time it happened. Sure, every now and then I wake up in the middle of the night. But before that, it was like every single night for like probably before I saw the doctor. It was probably maybe 1.5, maybe 2.5 months every night. And then I had one thought of trust, of trusting in Bruno Groening, of giving a burden away, and the burden just vanished. And I've experienced it many times, and other people have experienced it many times. But that's not so important as that you experience. And whether it's Bruno Groening, if you're a Christian, I would advise taking on that same attitude towards Jesus, handing over burdens, fully trusting, asking for help. And it's not just about healings. I remember one time I was having challenges with a friend, and we just weren't, it was like there was a disconnect, and I just didn't know what to do. And I Bruno, please help. What should I do about things with Isabel? Maybe I tuned in for a minute, and then I had the thought, oh, ask Lana. I'm like, that's odd. Lana was another friend of mine. And so next time I saw my friend Lana, I'm like, I just briefly, explained the situation. I was like, I don't know what to do. And Lana was like, well, why don't you just send her a text and say, hey, thinking of you, wondering how you're doing. And I did. And that was the first step in healing the friendship. And so if these things happen every now and then, they could be a coincidence. But when they happen over and over and over, that's when I knew I was onto something, and that there was something very true and very powerful here. So to anyone who's new, I invite you to find out for yourself. You can say, Bruno Groening, I want to know if this stuff is true. It's a legitimate question to want to know the truth. If you have an open mind. If you have a closed mind, this isn't really the path for you. But if you have a mind that because like I said, I was an agnostic. It's like, I want to know if this is true or not. And it was very quickly proven to me that there is a higher power that helps and heals. And that this guy, Bruno Groening, who I never met, cared about me and was available to help me, and would sometimes actually take on illnesses and burdens. He once said, I have to paraphrase, he said, give me your burdens and illnesses. I'll bear them for you. And people would go to him and be like, okay, Bruno Groening, here, have my migraines, have my da-da-da, have my da-da-da. And sometimes they would just vanish. So let's spend a few minutes reflecting on all of this, taking in more of this good energy. Hope I pronounced this name right. Guillermo, welcome all the way from Colombia. Bien viendo, Guillermo. Bien viendo. Yo soy muy diversión. I'm very happy to meet you and hear that you're joining in all the way from Colombia. So, observing the body, having the intention to take this energy and asking Bruno Groening for help, giving your burdens and worries away to him. Giving away fear and resentment, anxiety. In one of these online meetings, someone once came and they had a really bad sunburn. It was painful for them even to sit, to lean there. Their skin was bright red. And by the end of the meeting, their skin was light pink. My friend Rachel came to one of these online meetings. Actually, I I called her on my phone and put my phone next to the computer. And she had 3 healings happen with a phone next to a computer. I've heard it all. I can't say it all, but I've heard so many amazing stories and experienced so many amazing miracles myself. And the thing is a healing can happen in an instant, or it can take some time. I've had things vanish in an instant, and I have things that have taken years to heal. And so one of the things that Bruno spoke about over and over was trust. We're not in charge of life. I don't know if anyone else has noticed. And we're also not in charge of healing. We are in charge of striving for the good, but the timing of a healing, according to Bruno Groening, is actually not up to us at all. It's not even up to Bruno Groening. Bruno said that only God knows the time and place when a healing would be best. thing to keep in mind is that, Bruno spoke that a healing is in essence always an act of grace, because we don't experience, and not just physical healings, we don't experience problems in life for no reason. Bruno, and it's written that Jesus said the same thing, said, you reap what you sow. That when we experience something negative, it's the results of past negative actions coming around. As they say, what goes around comes around. So if we've behaved poorly or done harmed life in some way, shape, or form, not as a punishment, but just as a natural consequence, we'll experience something akin to that. We'll experience something that then balances that harm out. So a disease is again, just doesn't happen for no reason. It happens from something that's been out of alignment. And so a healing truly is a forgiveness of a debt. And that's why we can't demand a healing. Bruno over and over said that we can't boss God around. But we can plead, and we can plead for a healing. We can strive for a healing. But so much of what Bruno taught was grounded in the idea of being in surrender to God. I've read it many times. I don't have it handy, but one of my favorite spiritual quotes is taking on this attitude that God's the employer, we're the employee. God's the father, we're the children. God's the agent, we're the principal. To go through the day asking, what would you have me do next? To seek to be guided, just like I was guided in that moment of being led to my necklace. Now that seems like an extraordinary event, but according to Bruno Groening, listening to God, being guided, and again, Bruno's not alone in this, listening to God, being guided by God, that's natural. Health is natural. This path is really about finding our way back to what is natural. And Bruno would use the word nature and God interchangeably, and divine and natural interchangeably. This seems, and taking in this energy, it can seem like a radical act. But once again, Bruno said it's just ancient wisdom that's been forgotten. We're meant to live in connection with God. The ultimate goal is to be in connection all day long with the divine. Now, Bruno Groening can't do that for us, but he can help us. Different people have different definitions of the word master. Well, people would call Bruno Groening a master, and I think it's an apt term, a spiritual master. Bruno Groening once said, well, what is a master? It's someone who knows their trade. I want all of you to become masters of life. And it's my conviction that Bruno Groening will walk with us until that happens, until we come to that place. Hmm. Guillermo wrote, just the fact that we're having this meeting, this Einstellung, gives me the comfort in my soul. I feel Bruno alive in my heart. His connection with God is really powerful. And that's, especially that last sentence, his connection with God is really powerful. Yes, pictures of Bruno Groening heal. Bruno Groening's voice healed. And so it's like until we have that strong of connection, it's like leaning on him. Now, this may sound a little strange in the Western world, but in the East, it's understood. It's kind of part of the culture, especially in India with Hinduism. This idea of a guru, a being that's awake to God or connected to God, and you spend time in that guru's presence and lean on their connection until you have your own connection that's that strong. I can't even tell you how many times I felt unwell and just looked at a picture of Bruno Groening until I felt better. Can't explain it. I can only share that it works. Hmm. So if anyone else would like to share what they're feeling or experiencing, please do. For myself, I'm feeling a deep spaciousness, a deep peace. I notice there's a place of tension in my body that wasn't there at the beginning. So it's like, yay, regulation, which means sometimes Bruno spoke that sometimes something would get worse before it got better, a temporary flare up of something on its way out. But mostly I just feel spacious and kind of like this peaceful emptiness. Some tingling. My hands and feet feel heavy and like a fullness in my hands and feet. Yeah, deep tingling. If anyone else wants to share what they're feeling, please do. Let's spend a couple more minutes in silence. Hey, Christine. Christine wrote, I feel a lot of Heilstrom, even though my mom is popping in and out of the room constantly. Yes. It's possible to learn to feel, to tune in anywhere. Jason said, feeling very peaceful and relaxed. Peaceful emptiness is a good description. Janet wrote, throbbing feet, hands, and head. And Germana wrote, with the Strom, your mom pops even more. All right, dear ones, this has been a really special gathering. I'm going to take care of a few logistics, and then we'll drop into some more silence. To anyone who's new, if you would like to be on my mailing list to get info about events, please go to my website, thehealingstream.org. Did I do that right? I'm going to type it again. I think I... did I do it right? Thehealingstream.org. I left out the www. There you go. And on my contact page, there's my email, and I can put you on a mailing list. On my website, I have an online course called Become a Master of Life. It's free, and it leads. This was kind of a general overview of Bruno's teachings, but it leads you through all of what I believe are the main points. I do all this work by voluntary donation. If you feel inspired to, I'm happy to receive donations for this work. I talk a little bit more about that on the website. If you subscribe to this YouTube channel, I do kind of spontaneous tuning in and talks throughout the day. You'll get a notification when I'm on live. So Bruno Groening and his teachings saved my life. That's why I do this. And who knows, and how many other, literally, probably at this point, it's probably hundreds of thousands of lives has Bruno touched. He's not even in his body anymore. And yet it's easy to pedestal Bruno, but that's not actually what he wanted. He did want our respect and our trust. But he said, believe, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, believe, dear friends, that I am nothing more than your helper. Which, in fact, you can be too. Which, in fact, you already are. If you only believed, if you only did it. So in essence, Bruno Groening said, what I am, you are. And you can do what I can do. Maybe most of us can't do it on the scale that Bruno Groening can yet. And yet he called us to become masters of life. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. I feel inspired to just drop into silence and let God talk and teach and touch each one of us. And that might be for a few minutes. That might be for a while. I don't know. Dear God, dear Bruno, please teach us, help us, heal us, show us the way. Lead us to the life that you want us to live. Help us to trust that that's a good life, that you are goodness, God, or goodness and harmony and love. Now let's just drop into silence. And as Bruno said, listen deeply inside yourself. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to Guillermo. We had a couple new people today. Welcome, Guillermo. A Day in the Life of Allison Willett. Fun name. Yes, Guillermo. And if you want for the spontaneous meetings, you need to subscribe to my channel, and then you'll get a notice for the spontaneous ones. I invite people to sit in the silence in the divine presence as long as they feel inspired to. And I appreciate the thank yous. And I appreciate all of you so much. Take care. The last thing I want to say is, in this human world, there's nothing that's completely reliable, right? Even the best friend will fall short sometimes. Even that thing that we count on because it's human, it's limited. And so the divine is not limited. And a truly pure helper, such as Bruno, while is still a human like you and me, is also somehow gone beyond limits. As Bruno said, I am stronger than evil. So I invite people to really reflect on what Bruno meant, and I'm going to be reflecting on it today, what Bruno meant when he said he was a friend. And to me, what it means is, well, I'll just tell you in his own words. Bruno, I'll have to paraphrase the first part. Bruno said, to that person who's not able to find their way out of trouble, if they say, I place myself into your hands, please guide me to the very end. Bruno then said, then I can help and I can lead that person out of their troubles. And it's been my experience that he is a true divine friend, not in the human sense of the word. And in my view, he's one of the purest souls to ever have walked on this earth. And that's my opinion. I invite people to reflect and tune in and come to their own conclusion. Let's see. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Much love.